I'm audible.
Yes, Anton.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for joining. Today we are here for the soapbox of Student General Secretary. We have the candidate Unman Nibande here. I'm Ramcharan. I'm head of the Election Commission. Joining me are Mehir and Jasmine, who are my co-commissioners. I'll just explain the format of the soapbox. Basically, we'll start with an 8-minute presentation by Unman. This is timed. Once it reaches 7 minutes, we'll tell him that its 7 minutes are up, and then he has to conclude in the last 1 minute. After his 8-minute presentation, the Executive Council, for example, Rohit is joining us, who is the Regional Affairs Secretary, and also the other members of the Executive Council can ask him questions for a fixed period of 30 to 45 minutes. Then we'll move on to the audience questions. We have asked students to fill their questions in a Google form with their name, and we called upon their names in the previous soapboxes. We'll do the same here as well. If any of you have a question, fill it in the Google form that we'll put in the chat box, and then we'll call upon you. After that, we'll go back to the Executive Council if all audience are over, and then we'll conclude the soapbox. As there's no competition in this post, there is no cross questioning around. So I'd like to ask Unman to just begin his presentation now.
Yeah, thank you. I'll start sharing my screen. Just let me know if it's visible.
It is visible.
Yeah.
Okay, we can start now.
All right, yeah, thanks a lot. So, good evening, guys. I'm really appreciative for coming to the soapbox. So, this is Unman Nibande. I'm contesting for the position of the Student General Secretary. So, I'll just briefly go through my initiatives and then you can go on to the previous next round. Right. So, this is how my manifesto looks. So, 3 things I've tried to address through this manifesto are increasing the bonding within the different batches. Through that, we can make sure we are completely bonded before we get back to the institute. Next is having strong knowledge sharing structures. So after we are bonded with each other, we would lead strong knowledge sharing structure so that we are on the same plane and to ensure a better rebuilding is possible. And last point is onboarding to the institute. So some of the points on my manifesto are trying to address this issue as to how we can have a smooth transition from an online to an offline mode. So going on. So the first and foremost are the intra-city meets. Now this is targeted for the 2020 batch to tackle the isolation and make sure they are bonded within each other, because a lot of their bonding is currently only on the online mode. So this is an initiative to make sure it is offline too. So what we are doing through this is, by Sati we'll identify people who are living nearby, and then they can be connected and they can form the groups among themselves. Then we'll give them activities, some tasks which they can perform after coming together, and these activities and tasks are not compulsory. It's completely up to them what they can do with these tasks. So the main purpose is to increase the bonding among the 2020 batch. And one caution is, so this will be done after proper analysis is done of the COVID situation at that time. Right. So go and later on, if we after we identify the cities for this, we can also bring in seniors who are willing to connect with their juniors. So next is the PG mentorship program. So this program is targeted to improve the PG inclusivity in the campus. So similar programs have been thought of previously, but hasn't been implemented until now. So this would be done through the PG seniors, which could be stream-wise or lab-wise or so on. And they would basically give academic and moral support to their juniors, right? So to make sure that they are properly included in the institute culture and so on. Now again, this will be done through Sati, and we will be recruiting a special PG core for this particular initiative. Right. So going on is the absorption program. Now absorption program is an effort to make sure an efficient knowledge sharing structures are possible in the institute. So basically to address the issue of sharing down knowledge to 2 completely new batches would be coming onto the institute. Now through this program, we would be having comprehensive introduction to all the different spheres of the institute. May it be cultural, may it be co-curricular, the sports sphere and so on. Then we will also have events which will facilitate intra-batch and the inter-batch bonding. So every night, say, we'll call seniors of a particular year, and they can have interaction with their juniors. And this will be monitored to the Sati mentors to make sure there are no mishaps. Next is the academic enhancement program. So this program is targeted towards the onboarding on the institute. So shifting over to completely online classes, which are a slightly slack mode of learning, to a completely offline mode would be a rough process. To smoothen this out, Academic insight will be given a week prior to the quiz by the professors and the TA of the selected courses. Now, this is targeted for the seniors and sophomores. As for freshies, we already have an existing academy program which is functioning well. All right. So next is the common information platform. So currently, our institute has a lot of information in a lot of different domains, maybe regarding the workflow, regarding mess registration, iCollege, the credit system, and so on. So currently, we don't have a knowledge sharing umbrella which will have all of this information under one platform. So this is the purpose to have this initiative. Going next is the Executive Council portal. So this initiative is to make sure the student governance is more accountable and transparent. So we'll have a common portal on which if you have any doubt regarding any stuff in the institute, you can just go onto this portal, you can enter your doubt. Then the Executive Council can come together, they can resolve their issue. And a transparent report will be given as to what all is happening behind that issue. Right? So it will help make the student governance more accountable and transparent. Next is the airport and train facilitator. So as we go on to the institute, we'll face problems in having traveling companions when we have to go back to our home or to any other place. So for this, to facilitate this, feature would be added onto the students app, wherein you can just put in as to which place and what time are you going. And if there is someone from the institute who is going to the same place or maybe along the same path, you can come together and have a really good journey. Right. So some small steps for a large impact. Firstly, gender sensitization. So this issue has been tried to address for a long time, and we still don't have a very tangible solution to this. So to tackle this, we'll have gender sensitization workshops at the start of the semester, so that a clear and a proper message is sent right at the start, and it will be better to inculcate this particular topic as we go on into the senior years. So next is the C5 infrastructure. So those of you who are working at C5 would have realized that there isn't much hangout spot or any other infrastructure at C5. So the nearest place is Campus Cafe, which closes in the evening. Right. So facilitate this, a round table, tea, coffee sachet, some hot water dispenser, and all would be kept at C5 to make sure there is a hangout spot in the hectic work schedule. Then is the bus tracking system. So currently on the institute we have 4 different buses on 2 different routes. Right. So but there isn't any system in place which will help us track these buses. So if by any unavoidable circumstance the bus gets late and ahead of its schedule, then we just really don't have any idea as to how much time we would have to wait for the bus to come. So if we have a tracking system in place, at every point we'll know where the buses are at and we'll get an idea as to how much time do we have to wait. Next is the medical emergency portal. So if you have noticed, a lot of students are facing issues raising funds for their medical emergencies. So this portal is just a small effort to make sure the process is more smooth and accountable. So in this, we'll just have to put in some basic information like the name, the address, the hospital, a letter from the hospital, and then this can be directly sent to the students after proper verification. Right. So next is motivational session for the specially able people. Now this is a giving back sort of an initiative. So it is a very great challenge for us to crack the competitive examinations, and considering this, it is an even greater challenge for specially able people to crack these examinations. So we'll identify such people who are studying currently in the different schools in Chennai, and through the people who are studying in the IIT Madras, we'll have some sessions for the people who are in Chennai to make sure they are motivated enough to continue on their path and achieve wonders. And last but not least is the video testimonials. So currently we have a very well functioning student wellness center in the institute, but however it really hasn't been able to reach each and every student. Right? And one main cause for this is students are not really able to place their trust on the third party organization to solve their problems. So if we have video testimonials of the people who have gone to the student wellness center and who have their queries resolved or their issues sorted, then if they can connect with this person, and this will help in building the trust in the student wellness center, and we would achieve great bonding in the, and collective mental health would be increased in the institute. Right. Okay, so this was about my manifesto. These are my credentials. So I am the current core of the extramural lectures team, which is the SGS body, which is committed to increase, to have an overall development of the students apart from their academics. Then I'm the structures lead at Team Avishkar Raipulu. Right. So I'm the structures lead at Team Avishkar Raipulu, where we are working on a path-breaking technology. Then I was GenSec associate in the Tapti hostel in my second year, and I was also an associate executive in the DNA team of VC. So this is about me. Please do come out to vote on the 7th of April. And yeah, let's continue with the session. Okay, thank you.
Cool. Thank you, Unman. So let's move on to Executive Council questioning then. So anyone from Executive Council, if you have questions, you can ask.
Aman, you're there?
He's not there, I think.
Okay. So Unman, hi, this is Rohit here, the Research Affairs Secretary.
Yeah.
I wanted a clarification on one of your manifesto points, which is the CSI infrastructure about roundtables and stuff like that. Where exactly are you planning to put this up?
Currently, this is planning to be put at the temporary CY, which is at the NAC.
NAC. Okay.
Yeah.
But does that come under your purview? Like CFI comes under your purview?
No, C5 exactly does not come under my purview, but then the infrastructure does come under my purview. So this is a part of the infrastructure. So I feel I can look into this.
But the infrastructure has a lot of other places where you can have this roundtable and public facilitation. So why just CFI?
Unman, I just have
Yeah.
a follow-up to what Rohit asked. I hope if you have talked to CFI head, you might be pretty much aware about the less space which is available near C5. Do you think it makes a
Yeah.
lot of sense to put up round tables and all other things when it's very congested to even put equipments and different machineries that are there in C5?
Yeah, that is true. So the time when I was working at C5 through Avishkar Raiparu, I had identified there is a space in the middle of C5 where we can have a small setup for a round table. So this round table is not something which occupies a lot of space. So it can be just a small 4x4 table wherein 4 people can sit. And we'll have a tea, coffee equipments which were at their round table.
Okay.
So I don't feel this would take much harm.
Yeah. Again, reiterating upon what Rohit said. Is it possible for us to create this round table thing anywhere else rather than C5? Because right now it's actually very much difficult for us to even get all the teams working together at the same point of time. If you might have visited Open House last time, which I believe you would have probably had, there was a lot of congestion for people to even get inside C5 when Open House was happening. When there was in fact a lot of people. So do you think it really makes sense to have all these round tables and everything there? Yeah.
Right. So it's not about having a round table in the institute. It's about having a round table at near C5. So currently C5, if we are working there and you have to have a small hangout in between, so we have to go to the campus cafe. But then the campus cafe closes at evening currently. Right. So this is specifically to address to this need. So it has to be near C5. And I was recently talking with the C5 head, and so he's saying that we can identify some place over there where we can have a small round table, which will not take up space. And later on, as the new C5 is under construction, as the room planning hasn't been done yet. So then we can sit together and identify such a spot for the new C5. And currently, this would just be a temporary thing until the new C5 is built.
Okay, Rohit, in case if you have any follow-up over here, please.
No, yeah, see, the question is not whether you can do it for CFI or not. The question is why just CFI? Why can't you find a place in general? Because NAC has a lot of other department people also sitting in it, right? And they will also have the same issue with FFT being closed at night and stuff like that. So why are you focusing just on the CFI part?
All right. Okay. So I focused on C5 because this is something which I observed myself. So to be frank,
yeah, but as a Gen Sec, you should be open to ideas which you personally have not been a part of, right?
Yeah, I understand. So this is something which, after consulting with the dost, I mean, he himself pointed out that we need to have something like this at C5, right? And regarding the rest of the people in NAC, it's like.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Yeah, regarding the rest of the people at NAC. So one thing which I was thinking about is about the FFT. So, but then I think that comes under the HAS purview. And regarding C5, nobody had really thought of this before. So I feel I could go about this.
Whether it comes under HAS or not, everything comes under GenSec, right? So GenSec and HAS can together also do whatever the HAS might want to do in front of it, right?
Yeah.
So anyway, I think the point being that why just CFI infrastructure was being pointed out. The other question I have for you is your IoT-based bus tracking system and everything. What would be the impact? Have you found out how many students are actually using the bus transport system? vis-a-vis the cycling or the cycles that they individually have, how big an impact of having this will be there?
Right. So this is one initiative which may not impact a wider audience, but then those who really use the buses, they are facing this issue. And I discussed this with the people who are currently residing at the campus, some research scholars, and they said that they are facing this issue. So, right, as you point out, it may not have an impact on a wider audience, but then this is something. There are people who need this particular initiative, and this will cater to them.
No, which is essentially my point with the other things that you have, support portals that you're talking about. Right, a collective executive council portal. Did you talk to any executive council member about what issues will they be having before you put up this portal?
So the current executive council members.
Yeah, I mean, you should take their idea about whether they require this portal or not, right? I for sure know that you did not come to me, so I just want to know, like, have you talked to other executive members before deciding on this?
No, I haven't talked with the other executive council members as to whether they need such a portal. But I feel as the students, this is something which will help them increase their trust in the student governance. So this is not a direct need of the executive council per se, but it is a need of the students. That is what I feel.
Yeah, fine. But then, like, you are making it mandatory for the executive council. Like, SCC has their own portal, and then I think we have a DOST portal and everything. So what exclusively will you put in it, or what might be the troubles you might face, or if you are going ahead and putting it up, and you're asking your colleagues in the executive council, including yourself, to be part of this thing, then what exactly will be the issues they might be facing? Like,
issue they might be facing, or the issue they want to be addressed?
Both of them. See, that's what I was asking. Have you talked to them? Like, is there any concerns, or is there any positive feedback that you have got? Because I have not gone through a feasibility report properly. But can you tell me, like, more about what exactly have you done in this thing?
Right. So currently we do have an SCC website which is functioning. But then again, there is not an efficient system wherein everyone can come together and resolve the issues which you get on the website. Right. So this is something which will wherein all the executive council can share a common platform, and if any doubt is raised, then they can come together and resolve this issue. So in their respective, it is a better process, right? So if there is any issue and if they can solve it with collaborating with any other secretary, then it is good enough.
That is very generic term that you're talking about. Like, what issue would you want an executive council to come together to solve? Like, where you seeing the overlap, where you want interaction between the executive council to solve it out.
So okay, one thing maybe it's something about Sabha or Samiti. So it would come under the SGS and the CULSEX too. So if there is someone who wants to question as to why is this event happening under this Samiti or something like that. This is just a very basic example, and he does not know which secretary to approach. So then he can go on this portal, then he can put up this issue, and then the secretaries can come together and resolve that.
Yeah, so essentially this is not like for secretaries to actually showcase whatever they have done. It is more for the GSP to actually ask questions to the executive council.
Not ask questions, but to resolve their issues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but I still think you should have talked to the current executive council before taking anything like this, or like in your feasibility check. I don't see you have put a purpose and you have put a provision, whereas in the others you had purpose, provision, and the feasibility as well. What you have done.
Okay.
That was something.
Okay.
Yeah, Aman, you are there, so I'll hand it over to you before asking more questions.
Yeah, fine. I mean, you guys can just continue. I'm sorry for coming late. I was just out of station for something and couldn't come on time. Yeah, I mean, others can just go on asking. I'll just start up my questions in a while.
Okay. Any other executive wants to ask some questions? Cool. So I'll continue then. So your other support portals, right? So common information platform is there. Then you want an executive portal that is there. Then you want a facilitator for airport transport or airport and stuff like that. Who is going to do all this?
So this should be collectively done by the Institute WebOps team and the MobOps team.
Okay. And have you talked to the WebOps team about whether they have the bandwidth to get this thing done, or how much cost it might take, or whether it is feasible or not?
Yeah, I've talked to both of the WebOps and the MobOps course, and they have assured me that it is feasible.
It is feasible.
Yeah.
Okay. With the current team that is in place, or are you expanding the team, or what are you going to do?
No, with the current team, this is feasible. That is what they have told me. I mean, we didn't really specifically talk about the team strength, but they
Yeah,
have assured me that it is feasible.
correct. But how will you make sure that, like, what is the feasibility that you have done that this will be feasible with the current team?
So I feel feasibility regarding talking with the current WebOps core was sufficient.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So regarding, I mean, ideating this, I feel the feasibility regarding the
Okay.
WebOps core was sufficient for this. So he has a very detailed idea about what all needs to be done to set up something like this in place. So I feel that his word is enough for this.
All right, fine, cool. So you want a common information platform for all the information that a student might want about Insti, right?
Right. Yeah.
So why can't you have like an executive portal inside that thing itself? Why are you having separate things, like three different things? Essentially, your common information platform will subsume the other two portals, right?
Sorry, can you come again?
Yeah. So your common information platform, right?
Yeah.
If you are able to if you are able to create that, then essentially your collective executive council as well as airport, train, transport, both of these things will essentially be a part of that platform, right?
See, common information is just about how to go about doing some process. It is different from doubt resolving and finding someone to go along with you for your journey. So I don't think the common information would cover the executive council portal and the airport and facilitator. These three are different domains.
So you want three different websites for this?
No, this can be added as a feature on the same student's website. Right. So
okay.
So
essentially, your entire supports portal is enhancement of the student's website.
Yeah, you can say that. You could say that. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Right. And others, anybody else is there?
Fine, then I'll just start up with my few questions. Okay, fine. I'll just start with a very basic one. I think you'll be knowing, but yeah, just for the confirmation that you are aware of the basic responsibility. Just tell me who all are the student members in the BSc, BAR, and CNET.
All right. So starting from the BAC. So BAC is a board of academic courses. So in that, myself and I mean, if I become the SGS and the AAS would be a part of the BAC. Then going on is the BAR, right?
Yeah, BAR and CNET.
So BAR is a board of academic research, and the SGS and the RS is a part of the BAR. And regarding the Senate, in the Senate, the SGS and the speaker is a part of the Senate. I'm not really sure about the speaker part, but the SGS is part of the Senate.
Okay,
but
I think there's some misconfirmation there. SGS, AS, and RAS. So all three are part of the Senate.
Okay.
But fine. Let's come to their role. Like to represent the academic concerns, there are already AS in the BAC. To represent the research people concerns, there's already an RAS in the BER. Then why do we have SGS there? Like, is there not a redundant body?
Yeah. So actually, when I was thinking about this particular thing, and this applies for the HAS too. I mean, in the body which HAS and the SGS share. So what I found out after talking to different people was this is similar to a tree with two different branches. So it's not like their works are completely different. It's just some sort of a mutual coordination between the SGS and the AAS. So the AAS would mostly look into the academic side, but then the SGS would make sure that the other concerns which arise out of the academic part can also be taken care of in the BSc, and similarly for the RAS in the BAR. So that is what I have concluded from what I have found.
Fair enough. I thought it was kind of it's derived from the powers of the SGS as a basic responsibility to represent the students' concern in the Senate, and because to represent something in the Senate, you must be aware of what is going on in the two basic boards, the BR and BSc. I think there's also, I mean, this reason also is there.
Yeah.
That's why.
But then again, even the AAS and the RS are also part of the Senate. So even this issue does not really solve the problem, right?
Yeah.
So if,
I mean that reason is there, but I think this is also one of the reasons ke SGS, one of the basic duty that has been assigned to SGS is to make sure ke you represent whatever is there in campus. I mean, if some other secretary is not finding it comfortable enough or due to some reason, then SGS is supposed to be like you take care of almost everything, even if that doesn't fall under someone else category or not. But fine. Let's come to a few basic. I mean, okay, last basic question then. What is the mission of Sathi?
Yeah. So Sathi is the proactive front in the institute. Their mission is to increase the collective well-being of institute, to make sure the students are aware of what all facilities are available in institute regarding their mental health, and to make sure there is an increased well-being of the institute. So that is, I may not be in the perfect words of what is the vision, but more or less this is what Sathi aims to do in the institute.
Yeah, I think it's more or less. And Naveen, you would like to add something? Like if he has missed anything?
Hello, am I audible?
Yeah.
Yeah. So basically, we are a proactive friend. So we make sure that that there isn't a case where a person is depressed. So Mitra is more on the reactive side. They tackle two problems. We make sure that the problems don't arise in the first place, and we organize workshops and stuff to equip people with the sufficient tools to tackle the different problems. Yeah. So basically, a proactive mental health friend.
Okay. I think you got it correct there then. Fine. Let's talk a few things about the manifesto then. Most of the things I could understand quite easily from the words said in the manifesto and the feasibility report. But just again, just for the confirmation, I had few doubts in two, three things. One was, what are the key areas that you think that the students are not able to find information available that you might like to put up on the common information portal?
Right. Okay, so one example would be how many credits can we take from NPTEL. So this there is an information available about it in some place, but currently me sitting here, I really don't know where is it. So what I have to do is I have to go through a couple of people, and after going through 10 different people, someone has that information, and then I can get it through that. That person might be the legislator for my branch, or I mean, in every case, we have to approach a different person for the information, right? So for hostel fees, there would be some other person. For this academic thing, they might approach a legislator. But then again, to remove this middle component, I'm thinking of having a common information platform where everything would be available on one place.
Okay. Fine.
So it's not like the information is not available any place. It's, let's say we have to go for different places for every different type of information. So that makes the process more clumsy and very complex. So to smoothen this out, I am thinking of having a common platform.
Okay, it's like centralization of the information which is spread out quite big.
Yeah.
Fine. Like, okay, then let's come to the user flow question which I have regarding the two portals you have mentioned. So can you tell me the user flow of medical emergency portal, like how a typical use case would work?
Okay. So if someone is having difficulties in raising funds, you would have to go onto this portal, and this portal would have like 5 different tabs, which would have his name, which hospital, the reason for this, and his bank details, and then you would have to add a letter from the hospital. So after he does this, then this information would be sent to the SGS mail, and this information would then be verified by the executive committee of the SGS. And after that is done, a common mail would be sent to the entire student community, and then we'll have a separate fund for this where the amount sent by the different students can be collected. And after this collection happens, we can send that amount directly to the account of the beneficiary, the one who has raised this concern. So this is how the user flow would work.
Okay, fair enough then. Fine then, can you tell me user flow, like how the executive council portal that you have mentioned, like what is the purpose of it and how is actually affecting that purpose?
Right. So currently, as I brought this example earlier, so if I have any doubt regarding any one particular Sabha or Samiti, and I don't know which secretary to approach for this, is it the SJC, is it the cultural secretary, or any other one? So I would just log on to this portal. Then I would type out an issue in this in the portal as to this is the issue which I am facing. Please resolve this. Then this would be sent to the executive council, maybe through an email or on some notification onto their email. Then they can go onto this portal. They can see, I mean, under whose purview does this issue exactly lie. Then they can collectively solve this issue and provide a report as to what is happening regarding that issue on the portal. Right. And then once the issue is resolved at the end of the month, we can also have monthly reports as to how many issues were received, how many were resolved, and so on.
Okay, so is it like a monthly, I mean, or whatever you say periodically, a report will also be shared with the students that, okay, this much amount of concerns
Yeah.
were raised and this much amount of reply was there from the respective council member,
Mm. Yeah.
and along with some time metric, okay, how much it was there. So that's to just say ki how fast it was and all those things.
Yeah. So this is part of the user flow for this. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Okay, so yeah, can you mention what are the stakeholders of pandemic portal document that you want to create?
Yeah. So from the student side, the disaster management committee would be developing this portal to address the issues of the student. This document to address the issues of the students. And then from the administration side, we would need the help of the chief medical officer, the chief security officer, and the DOST. To make sure they would give an idea as to what all guidelines do they receive from the government or the external bodies, and then that can be combined with the student side from the DMC. Yeah.
Okay, fine. Others can just continue asking any question or anyone from GSB. I'll just come back in a while.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so this is Naveen here, one of the Sati course.
Yeah.
Can I go ahead?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions with respect to your manifesto points, Unman.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so the first one is regarding the academic enhancement program that you have put there.
Okay.
So who will be coordinating this? Which team under you will be coordinating this particular program?
Okay, right. So the academic enhancement program will be using the professors and the TAs of some selective courses, and they would be giving guidance to the students in the designated time. So we won't need a special team to coordinate this. So I feel my task as an SGS would be just to convince the professors to about the need for such a program, and then that can happen by coordination within themselves. So after this, after the fire is lit, I don't need to fan its flames. So something of that sort. So we don't need any special team to make sure there is a coordination between them.
Okay, so it will be a program involving just the profs and the TAs of courses.
Yeah.
Okay. Fine.
Namin, just to add on to your question, Unman, you are saying that you will. How would you go about getting a prof on board for this thing?
Right. So when I brought this point up with the Dean Academics, so he said they have tried to have some similar programs in their previous years, but then because the programs were very intensive, the student, I mean, it just did not work. The students were not willing to be a part of that intensive program. So it's like some profs are already willing to have some similar program for this for the students, and thus I feel this would not be a difficult task to get them on board.
That's not what I'm asking. That's not what I'm asking. You are saying that there would be a academic enhancement program, right? So how are you going to go about implementing it in the sense from the policy perspective? Okay. What would be your direction? Like, how will you tell the professors to do this thing?
Okay. So first is the Dean Academics is on board. So he has sure to provide assistance for this thing.
No. Dean Academics cannot make the professors work for it. Dean Academics can only send a mail to the professors requesting them to do it. But he cannot ensure that they will do it.
Yeah.
So how are you going to make sure that the professors and the TA follow whatever you're doing? Given the fact that you have said that no student body is actually going to be looking after it. So how do you implement it then in that sense?
Okay. So to start with, I am thinking of we'll have some selective courses for which this program would be run. And to do this, I would have to personally contact the professors. And if that program does work, then I would have to place some resolution or some proposal in the Senate, and then it can be approved for a wider set of courses. So to start with, I'll have to personally contact the professors and convince them for this particular thing. Later
Do
on,
you
it
know
can
how
be.
many professors are there on the campus?
We have around 300 professors.
No, you have 600 professors.
Okay, 600.
Nah,
Sorry.
nah. Yeah, we have professors 300. Total, if you add associate and assistant, then it comes 600.
Whatever be the case, right? So professor in the sense assistant or whatever professors. Okay, full professors, half professors, that is a different matter. But if he is saying that professors are responsible for this, how are you going to? So you are going to shortlist the professors, or who are you going to shortlist?
Yeah, we will it's not about shortlisting, it's about approaching the professors. We'll first shortlist the courses with which we want to start this program. Then we would approach the professors, and if they are on board, then the program can be started for this set of courses, and later on
Yeah,
it can be expanded.
no, so that's what I'm asking you. You are talking about, let's say, 300 professors you're talking about. How are you going to approach 300 professors given the fact that no team is behind this thing?
Yeah, so initially I'm thinking of having this program for the core courses which are mandatory for every branch. So, and then I would have, so this core courses would have some around say 100 professors. Then I would, even 100 is a big number. So, and these core courses are only for the second years and the senior years. So as you go on to senior years, the number of core courses goes on decreasing. Right. So the number of professors who are teaching this core courses would be less, and I can approach to them personally through me. So I won't have to approach all the.
So essentially,
300 professors.
you are going to be the single man army who is behind this thing, correct?
I'm sorry, can you come again, please?
So you are essentially the single person who is running this thing. You don't have a team working for you.
Yeah, if I feel the workload is too much for me, I can also make sure there is an executive committee which is doing this task.
Sorry, you will make sure what is their executive commission.
Executive committee under the student general secretary.
Okay.
Yeah. So,
anyway, that is one part. Okay, you're reaching out to the professors is one part. How do you think the professors will take this thing, like initiating and providing structure and focused tutoring? Tutoring, you are saying that the professors will do the tutoring for like freshers, or that we will do the tutoring for the freshers, or who is going to
yeah, not for the freshers. This is for the second years and above. And the professors or the TA. I mean, if the professors want to do it themselves, they can as well do it. Otherwise, they can also.
Did you check with the TAs whether they will do this work above and beyond their TA duties?
Yeah, so this work is not very intensive. This will happen in the week prior to the quiz.
That's not what I'm asking you. What I'm asking you is, did you check with the TA guys that over and above their 8 hours of TA duty that they have to do, will they do this work?
See, it's like if I can convince the professors of the need of this initiative, then they can instruct their TAs to do this. Right, okay. And if the professor
everything depends on you, you making sure that the professor is onboarded, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. And you are saying that the professors are onboarded only because the dean of courses is onboarded.
No, because that some initiative of this sort has been tried before by a group of professors, which included the dean of acads.
And why did it not work?
That initiative was very intensive, so they had like 3 to 4 classes in every week. Right, so after some point, for the students, it just became another course which they had to attend. So this did not work in the long run. The professors were interested, but the students started falling out of that program. But this is just a week prior to the quiz, and it would be a very small session of say 2 or 2.5 hours. So I feel this initiative would work well.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
And then in the same vein, your PG mentorship program, right? Will be run through Sathi for onboarding the postgraduate freshers. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so the new admissions in the postgraduate programs.
Okay. What do you mean by mentorship program? What sort of a mentorship are you providing?
Okay. That's, yeah. I thought you were just asking the later part of the question. Okay. So by what I mean a mentorship is, this mentorship can be in the academic part. It can be in the as providing as a moral support for the people. So when they come from a completely different culture in their previous college into the new year, they have. I mean, what I found out after talking with a lot of people is they have trouble in onboarding with the institute culture. And particularly for the MS and MTech programs, as they only have a limited amount of institute and they have extreme workload and so on, they are not really able to inculcate with the institute culture, which results in most of the events being UG centric. So to tackle this, so to make sure that they are on board with the institute practices, I mean, how do different things work, how how does the sarang works, how the shastra works, etc. And then also to provide a moral support. So to form initial groups of the PG students to make sure they have a mentor who can address to their problems and so on. So this is an upscaled version of the Sati program for the UGs.
Okay, but
Yeah.
what feasibility did you do? Did you talk to the Shastra coach or the Mukund, or did you talk to me about, what exactly is the issue why people are not getting integrated?
Yeah, the reason which I think it's this is
No,
because they have.
I'm not asking you what you think. I'm asking you, did you check the background with the current executive? Because a lot of this initiative was tried last year, or at least was in the works, and it has not yet been executed for multiple reasons. So did you find out why it was not being executed?
Okay, but I had approached you regarding this initiative, right? But then it's not like the main part of is not to introduce them to different spheres. The main part is to provide a moral support, and through that also to provide and to make sure they're inculcated with the institute culture.
Yeah, fine. That is okay. I'm not bothered whether you approached me or not. I'm bothered about whether did you do the check for this thing. Like when you're saying PG mentorship program, we have something similar running, not maybe a junior or a senior PG mentorship, but we have a mentorship program running. Okay.
Yeah. So from what I remember from our conversation is, I think you're talking about the industrial mentorship program, right?
Yeah, so it's not just industry. When you're saying about any moral support and all, okay, your mentorship cannot.
No, I'm talking about the program which you were referring to.
Ours is also industrial, not industrial.
Yeah.
It is alumni. Okay, it is not industry. It is alumni for career development. Okay.
Career development, right?
Right.
So
in sense. Right. The second question what I'm asking you is when you're saying onboarding it, okay, master student research scholars have two different varieties, because master students is a course-based thing. Everybody goes through the same issues. But in a research scholar, everybody doesn't go to the same issues. So it is very difficult for somebody to actually mentor a junior, and it is very subjective to do this. How are you going to decide what mentorship is required, what not required, especially for a postgraduate fresher?
Okay. But then will a postgraduate senior be better equipped to handle the issues of a postgraduate fresher?
Sorry, can you come back on that? What would be better?
Yeah, a postgraduate senior would be better equipped to handle the issues of a postgraduate fresher, right?
That's what I'm asking you. Do you know that for a fact? Have you talked to people like that?
Yeah, so when I talk with you, I mean, this is what you said. You had mentioned the problems are very different for the MS and tech people. But then I feel as the PG seniors would have gone through some similar set of problems, they would be better equipped to resolve their issues.
See, again, Unman, your beliefs, your points is all well taken because your beliefs are on the right track. What I'm asking is the feasibility of doing this thing. Almost every point that I have questioned you is on the feasibility part, because I don't see you having done the feasibility for these things. Your point and your intentions are good. Okay, and I would have backed it if you had come to me. But I don't see the feasibility of you, like the feasibility check being done. So that is what I was trying to point out, that your research on this thing has not been that proper. But
okay, my research, So my research for this thing was particularly in determining can we really get enough number of mentors for this particular program. So this is where my research was focused about. I did not really think about whether there would be a need for very specific mentoring about a particular issue which a person is facing in the MS or MS in the PG fresher. Right.
Yeah, exactly. So which is why I'm saying, you should have done a little bit more research and asked people about this thing.
But then it's like it's not about specifically targeting any particular issue. If we have some system in place, then the system would adopt a test to which issue it has to look into. So we did not have a very set guideline as to this person has to look for this issue and so on. That is the job of the student wellness center. So this is just to have some system in place so that they at least know as to what is happening in the institute. So this is the main purpose. It's not about tackling any particular issue of any particular person. This is just to have a common platform or some boost for them into their institute life. Right. Talking about specific issue, this is the job of the student wellness center.
Right.
So
see, just to follow up on this thing, the last question. You are saying that the PG guys are in two batches, right? And so it will be easier for you to maybe get the mentorship allocated. Right, but in fact, it is not two batches. It is during two applications that we open up. but the actual joining date differs from every scholar.
Right.
So you cannot be ever sure that you have covered the entire scholars or the freshers sphere.
Yeah.
Okay,
Okay, just one thing before we go on. So I did not say it would be easy because they are in two different batches. I just said I did a feasibility.
no. You said that is 2 batches. I'm saying it's not 2 batches. It is 2 application opens. That's it.
Okay,
So
2 phases. Can we call it 2 phases then?
Sorry?
Can we call it 2 phases then? 2 different phases. Okay, anyway, so that is not okay. So it's like this program, I mean, this mentor-mentee network would be formed dynamically. So as I said, would be lab specific or stream specific. So in the lab, say if 2 people are joining the lab, then the senior would be called in to provide mentor support, right? And later on, it will be a very dynamic process. Right? As I mean, it would be a demand and supply. So when the people start coming into a specific stream or a specific lab, then the seniors would be called in and they would start giving some guidance to these freshers.
Okay.
So this is what you will happen. It will not be a very set platform from the start. It has to be dynamic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. I think I'll stop here for the time being. Somebody else wants to take up?
Yeah.
So I think let's move on to audience question, then we can revert back to.
Sure. Just let me have some water.
Yeah, sure. So these are basically anonymous questions, and so I'll just ask them. So
Okay.
So someone is asking, what are your views on scaling the medical emergency site you mentioned to an Insti crowdfunding website that can be used for projects, etc.?
For projects, etc.
Yeah.
Okay, so I haven't really thought about this. This site is for a very specific need, which is the medical emergency program. I feel for the projects and different stuff, there are different bodies which are taking care of that. It could be the alumni cell or I mean, I'm not really sure as to which are, but then I feel this initiative, as it caters to very specific need, I feel it should be kept for this. But then if there is any need, we can provide the model as to how we went about in deriving this portal, and that can be applied for other programs too, other requirements too. I hope that answers the question, if that person is there.
Okay. So is Abhishek here? He has asked the question.
Hi, Umman.
I guess he's not.
Yeah,
you can go ahead. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so, Umman, there is, wait a second. In your support portal section, there is one point, right? Airport, train, transport facilitator. So I have a question regarding that. So let's say.
I'm sorry, your voice is cut off.
Is it audible properly?
Yeah, it is now. It is now. Yeah.
So let's say someone is just messing up with other people. He's just uploading his time and let's say some train time and airport time and some particular flight or some particular day. So like not really there. He's just putting it smart. Okay. So do you have any provisions for that, like uploading ticket or something like that? Have you done anything on that?
Okay, so the way this would work is, so when you upload a request upload your requirement as to I'm going to this place at this time, and if there is someone else who also drops in key, okay, I would be going there too, then these 2 people would be connected. We can share either their SML IDs to prevent any other mishaps, or we can share their contacts too. And then before traveling, they would get together and they would discuss as to where you are going. And through that, if he finds out that this person is a fake, and he or she can find out that this person is a fake, and then he can look for someone else too. So I think that would take care of that issue. I hope that answers your question.
I'll just give one input. Like you can just add a portal where they can upload the ticket.
Ticket. Okay. So all right. Ticket. I don't think how good is uploading a ticket based on the security terms. So, but then again, that could be thought of.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Fine. So I'll ask another one. So what are your views on very less number of women or no women applying for executive council position? Do you think we need to reserve position for women in executive council now, like it's been done in the country?
Okay. Executive Council. So it's like to apply for a position on the Executive Council, you need to have some set of experiences for which you can apply, after which you can apply for this council position. So just having a reservation at the highest level, I don't think that would solve the issue. So again, if we can try to motivate more women to join the different teams through which you can really get the experience required to be a part of the Executive Council, I think that would be helpful instead of having a reservation at the highest order, because this process starts right from the freshie or the second year to get the relevant experience for this. And I feel if women aren't applying for this position, one issue could be they don't really have the experience, or they just aren't willing to do that. But I don't think a reservation at the highest order would help in solving this issue.
Wait, can you just repeat what you just said? You said women do not have the experience, or they're not up. Did you just say that?
He said they do not.
I am saying
they do not. Yeah, go ahead.
I did not say they do not have the experience. They may not have the experience. That could be one of the reasons why more women aren't applying for the Executive Council position.
Okay.
That I said that could be one of the reasons. I'm not stating that.
Okay, then what do you think? Like, I think we have considerable women on campus, considering the recent percentage hike that was there, that 20% people in each IIT. I mean, I'm not sure each IIT or total IITs, but it says 20% community from the JEE Advanced should be women into the IITs. So, I mean, I think 20% ratio is there at the bottom. And I believe at least 1 or 2 can be there out of the 10 executive council positions. I think we have a considerable number. Like if you see the girls hostel legislator, I mean their hostel council, people are applying there. So okay, fine. I mean reservation may not be the best way. Do you think there's some other way we can promote the same?
Okay. Okay, so if you are to extrapolate the ratios directly from the start to the end, then for this current year, we'd have to go back 3 years, right, to check the ratio. And as far as I remember, that was somewhere around 14%. So that roughly translates to one position in the Executive Council. And I feel we have one candidate who is a woman, right? And going on to the next question, what? Okay, can you just repeat the question once, please?
Yeah, I mean, I was just concerned. Yeah, we have some harsh truth lying there that we are not able to find women candidates applying for the executive council position. They're certainly applying for hostel council very happily, but I don't think they are in the executive council position. So, how to promote the number of women candidates in the executive council position?
Okay. How can we promote that?
I mean, not only some.
Maybe I can put.
Yeah.
Maybe I can put this question in a different way. So, what are your views on equity and representation in your field? As in, for example, there should be someone who's representing you're representing the entire institute, of course. But like, what do you think of representation of women in your sphere or other spheres, and what will you do to make sure that the teams are more equitable?
Okay. I'm sorry. All right. So by equitable, do you mean equal representation for women and the men?
Well, at least some representation. Right now there is like almost none.
Okay, so almost none. You're referring to the executive council or the other bodies?
Well, for example, if we see the past 5 general secretaries, they were all men. I don't think we've ever had a woman as a student general secretary. So IIT Madras has always been.
All right. Okay. What could we do? Okay, so regarding the previous years, again, I think we cannot really look into this in specific spheres as the HS or the AAS and so on. We'd have to look for the entire council. And as I said before, I think the ratio is justified in the executive council. But then what we can do to motivate women is, at this moment, I don't really have anything, but can I think of it and tell it at the later in the soapbox?
Sure. In case you would like to have an approach to find a solution to this kind of point, then I mean, can you just think of it for 10-20 seconds and think of us telling us like what approach you would do to find some probable ways to improve the same?
Yeah. Okay. So the one thing is we have a women's forum on the campus. So maybe
Okay.
through that we can have some sessions or some workshops wherein we can uh, tell the women as to what is the need of having. I mean, how can we really motivate them into applying for different council positions, and how would that affect in represent the issues of women on the wider campus? So through the women's forum, we can have more guided workshops regarding this particular matter, regarding the SGS sphere or the executive council as a whole. And maybe we can, if we can realize that there is a need for this, and if the women realize that there is a need for us to be a part of such councils, and through that we can really address our issues more properly. I think that would be one solution for this.
Fine, looks fine from my side.
Yeah, Ramacharan, anything?
No. Okay, we had one more question. I want to present a spreadsheet, but it's fine. So can you name the number of executive council positions?
It's 9, excluding the speaker.
Yeah, so speaker is also, so it's 10. So, but speaker is a different election. So, in the past 5 years, so for example, there have been 45 contests, I suppose, right? 957. Of which, can you make an estimate on how many were unanimous?
Okay. The last 5 years. I don't know, maybe 20 or something.
27. So,
Okay.
around 60% are unanimous. So, do you think that's like a good culture in the institute that almost 60% of the positions are unanimous, or do you think people should be more involved in being more active participants in the institute governance system? And also, remember, along the similar lines, do you know how many people applied for research legislator positions this year?
Research legislator, I know there are 4 people who are currently the legislators, but how many have applied, I'm not sure.
So only 2 out of 16 positions applied. So there's some serious lacking there. So as a general secretary, what would you want to do? And like adding to that, are this and also the equity and women's representation a priority to you in your tenure?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not like there is one thing which is a priority. There are a couple of priorities. So it could be the women's or it could be the research legislators. So talking about the research legislators, I feel the PG mentorship program would help in some way as to start a culture in the PGs getting more involved in the institute. Right. Again, it's not about solving some specific problems of the PGs, but just to make sure they know what all is available in the institute. So I think that would would be one way to solve the problem about the research legislators. Talking about women, okay, so what about the unanimous part? So I would like to answer that too, right? Okay, so
yeah.
So I mean, what I've observed, there are 2 sides of this candidate being unanimous. So the first thing is, I mean, this will go either way. So first is they really focus on what they have to do, and they don't have to take care of the other things that is associated with the elections and so on. So they can really work on determining more impactful initiatives through their manifesto. Or it can also happen because they know that there is a competent, they end up having a lot of initiatives which are not of really great value in their manifestos. So these are the 2 points which come into play if a candidate is unanimous. And whether we should have more unanimous candidates, no, definitely no. I mean, that is not the purpose of democracy. But then, I mean, particularly about this year, if you observe, there are a lot of unanimous candidates. So just one thought on that was, this year, I mean, going through all of the election process is a very tough task, and not everybody is up to taking up this all the effort. Right. So what I think is the people who are unanimous now, one reason for that is they were very dedicated and confident in their thought of applying for this particular position, and that is an assurance that they would perform well in the tenure. Now, talking about the previous years, yeah, I mean, always having competition.
See, I'm not asking you to explain why they are unanimous. Like, what will you do to make sure it's not unanimous in the future? Like, looking forward after your tenure, or there'll be an election next year, or in the future years, what would you try to do that it's not 60% in the next 5 years?
Okay. One reason which could be in the result of unanimous positions is people feel that they do not have enough impact power in after coming in that position. So they feel they may not be able to do anything for the institute. So through this executive council portal, if we give them a report as to what all is happening regarding the issues which they are facing, if they understand that after being in this position, you can really impact the students. Maybe more people would be willing to apply for this position to make sure they can represent the views of other students in the institute. That is one thing. And next is also, as I told before, the women's forum can have some sessions which can improve the women's participation too. So these are two things which are coming to my mind right now. I hope they are making sense.
Yeah, good. Mihir, do we have any other audience questions?
No, there are not. So maybe we can revert back to executive council. So, Aman, if you have any question.
Yeah, I do have one question, Unman.
Yeah,
can you
sure.
explain to me a little bit more about the absorption program? Like, what is those very on board with or something?
Sorry, can you just repeat the later part of the question?
Like you said, this has received a warm response from the dean of students about 8 to 10 days interactive interaction, right?
Yeah.
How is it different from your orientation program or MA, when all the secretaries conduct their own sphere orientations? How is this one different from that, and for whom is this exactly for?
This is targeted for the upcoming freshie batch. This is 2021 batch. And I will also try to conduct this on a smaller scale for the 2020 batch because they haven't been on the institute before. So talk about what is different from the orientation program is. So we have different orientation for the different spheres later on too, even after having an orientation at the start. So this could mean that the orientation at the start, which is just a talk and a PPT, is not really effective in letting people know as to what is really happening in the different spheres. So through this 8 to 10 days, we will have the orientation which would otherwise happen later on in the semester. We'll have them at the start itself so that people get an unbiased and comprehensive view of all the different spheres which are there. And another part of this is having interaction with different senior batches. So this would help in increasing the bonding between the different batches of the people. Right. Did I leave any part of the question? Yeah, so basically orientation wherein people just come and talk about the spheres is not really helpful, and we the other teams find the need to have different orientation programs later on in the semester. So to make sure there is no need and the teams can really focus on their own initiatives, and later on in the semester we'll have this orientation at the start itself. So to give an unbiased and comprehensive view about all the different spheres to the freshers.
What do you mean by unbiased?
Yeah, it's like there are some clashes, right, as to which team's orientation would happen earlier, which team should happen later. So to avoid that part, and basically removing the bias.
There are how many clubs are there under COCAS and Pulsec?
No, I don't know the exact number.
So there obviously will be clash when every club is presenting their things, and you can't have a very straightforward scheduling of every club one after another because it will take you more than 10 days to do that stuff. So there will obviously be a clash. How are you going to make sure it is unbiased?
Yeah, it's like during the start, the freshies are just new to the institute. Right? They are very fresh and receptive to all the things. Later on, as they go on, they selectively choose the things which come to them first. Right? So at the start, in the 8 to 10 days, if we have... Sorry?
1 minute. Prisha, you're here, right? Prisha? Okay, I wanted some...
yeah, I'm here. I think I have a net problem.
Prisha, I just wanted to know when exactly does the sports secretary orientation happen?
So it happens in the first week of August. Like as soon as we're back, once the semester starts, it happens in the first week. That week, it happens around Wednesday, Thursday of the week.
Okay, and Unman, when are you planning to have this orientation?
Yeah, this would be at the first week of August too. So all this orientation would be included in this. I mean, not the first week of August, but the time when the freshies come back on the institute.
Okay, do you mean the initiation week, like as in the week before?
Right. Not the initiation week. So this year we may not really have an initiation week. So this would happen when the seniors and freshies are on the campus. Okay, so some part of it would lie in the initiation week, some part may lie after that.
So you're going to streamline the orientation how, like, as in, so culturals has their own set of club weekenders that they conduct, right, as their initiation. We are going to have another model completely for initiation next year. So how exactly would you be streamlining them? Because you can't clash them, like Rohit said, right? Either way, you can't clash them. So priority would have to be given, and everybody wants to do the orientation first, honestly. So how will you solve the problem if 3 secretaries come to you with different orientation dates? In fact, assume even more. Then how will you go about it?
So regarding this clash, I feel in the first 8 to 10 days, the freshies are very receptive to every information which they are receiving. So it's not like they are biased towards the thing which is happening first. But later on in the semester, when there is a gap of more than 2 weeks between 2 different orientations, the freshies do have some tendency as to going for the one which happened first. So I feel there would not be a clash as to this in this first initiation week, and it can be decided by mutual coordination between the different secretaries. I hope that answers the question.
No, actually it doesn't, because we are saying you will have an unbiased opinion and you will have it for every one of them, but that means we will be scheduling every one of these orientations, right? So when you are scheduling the orientation, how are you making sure they are unbiased?
Exactly. No, that is what I am trying to say. The scheduling at the start does not have an effect on their biasness because they are receptive to all the information. So if the sports happens on Wednesday and say the Culsex happened on Thursday, the difference of 1 or 2 days will not have any inclination in their bias. That is what I am trying to say. Hence, the scheduling would not be.
So this could easily be done if all the secretaries do it one after another, right? So essentially, you are saying all the secretaries do the orientation at the same time, correct? Rather
at the same time in the same period.
In the same period, right? So instead of you having a separate, absorption program, it essentially is an absorption week where every secretary presents their entire.
I have.
But isn't it the same thing? Like, as in, that is what already happens, right?
Exactly, that's what. Yeah.
And why?
No, but
initiation
then
week is called an initiation week, right? So, like, I mean, are you removing that and conducting this, or how does it? I think that's what has that question.
Right. So even after initiation week, so particularly the COCAS and the Culsex pair do have a separate orientation later on in the semester, right? So maybe that somewhere is the reason why it's required, because it's the initiation week orientation is not really impactful. So I'm trying to have this introduction at the start of the semester itself. So it would be a collective effort. I have consulted the Culsex and aspiring Culsex and the aspiring COCAS, and they are on board for this plan. Right. I hope that answers.
Okay, Rohit, do you have any other questions, or should I move on? I had one question. Okay, so Umman, I actually have. Sorry. Do you have a question?
No, go ahead. I thought I just saw my mic was mute, so I just wanted to say go ahead.
All right, okay. So, Unman, I had one question. Okay, so this is regarding GenSex, just a basic sort of responsibility, which involves taking care of sexual harassment cases as well, or at least ensuring smooth resolution, or some kind of like sort of punishing the perpetrator of sorts, right? For any sexual harassment case that happens in INSTI. At least they need to facilitate the same. I understand we have CCAS, but still, right? We see a lot of cases in INSTI actually go like a lot of people first don't come up, right? And don't to go to CCAS. Second problem being one day go to CCAS.
I'm sorry, your voice is breaking off. Is it just for me?
Oh, sorry. Sorry, my bad. Is it
mine it seems fine. Yeah, it is now.
Okay, fine. No, my all I was trying to ask is that right now there are a lot of cases in INSTI, sexual harassment cases in INSTI, that don't come up in front of any council because people feel either way it's not going to, nothing's going to happen and just their name will be brought up and people, it's a little sensitive, right? People don't want others to talk about it. So that's number one. Second being, right now the CCAS is not very effective. In fact, not effective at all. Okay, and a lot of cases that go to CCAS are never resolved. That is case number 2. And the third thing is, once people put and there's no communication and there's no accountability. Okay, so how do you solve that for students?
Right. So about this, I think the reason why the CCAS is not very trustworthy and accountable is because we do not have a permanent representative in the CCAS. I was thinking of making the SGS as a permanent representative in the CCAS. I did approach the director for this particular thing, but I did not get a reply. So I did not include it in my manifesto, but it definitely is on my mind. And I feel if we have a permanent representative of the students in CCAS, then that would make it more reliable and trustworthy, and then people would start coming up. And regarding, CCAS is anonymous, right? So it's not about their name would come out and it would spread and etc. So we'll have the CCAS functioning is anonymous. So we'll keep it anonymous to make sure people are not afraid to come.
All right. So how are you going to aid the process that right now a lot of cases in UC, in fact, at least from experience, I can tell you, because as a secretary, I get a lot of complaints, right? So I can at least tell you that 70% of the cases are not filed. In fact, that is also a very gracious number that I'm saying. Okay, 20% is also giving it a lot of this thing, but a lot of cases don't come up. Second, there are a lot of fake cases that come up. So how will you tackle both? One, the fact that how will you get people, like how will you make CCAS more approachable, number one. And second being that how do you avoid cases of fake cases, because fake cases actually affect the perpetrator a lot, like the supposed perpetrator a lot. And we have seen that in the past. So
so regarding your first point, how to make CCAS more accountable, I feel if I'm trying to push for the SGS, at least the SGS, and if possible one representative from the women's side to be a part of CCAS. And if that happens, I think the CCAS should become more accountable. And one reason as the process is not, the case is not getting resolved is, as CCAS is completely the professor's body, after some point they may get lost in their work and so on. So there has to be someone from the student side who is constantly putting for this and trying to make sure the case is resolved as soon as possible. So I feel if the GenSec is part of the CCAS, that would help in about the first point. Then how to avoid fake cases. I don't think we can really avoid fake cases. But then if the GenSec is a part of CCAS, if it is mandated that the complainant has to approach the GenSec and place his or her issue, then I feel if the GenSec has an idea as to what is the side of a complainant, then he can gauge whether the issue is fake or it's a serious issue. And then he can put it in front of CCAS. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, it does. Just one last question. For fake complaints, is there any form of repercussion, like for bringing up a fake complaint, or how would that be dealt with? Because right now there isn't any. So a lot of people just put it knowing that it's not going to affect them in any way, right? So how do you do that?
Repercussion, okay.
Sorry, that is basically punishment. Like suppose I give a fake complaint, what is the punishment for me?
Yeah, I understand. Yeah. What is the punishment for you? Okay. So first thing which came to my mind was we can make it public that this complaint was, but then that is not a very tangible solution. What we can do is we can issue a warning. We can issue a warning first, and if that is repeated, then we can make it public. Then we will give we'll inform that we will make it public if that happens for the second time. So I think that is the best we can do at this point.
Okay, and what if the case is termed false when it was actually true? Then if you make it public, then you're actually, then a lot of people be afraid to come to you if if we feel ki you just sort of will deem it as false. Like suppose I mistakenly do that, and then because of that thing, my issue becomes public, and the fact that it'll come out as I put a fake complaint. That looks really bad, right, for me? So I'll be afraid because sometimes you can't prove a lot of things in Insta, right? So
okay, all right. So this would happen for the second time, not for the first. So if one case has been proved fake, then you'll be given just one warning. And if it happens for the second time, and if even the second time you're not able to prove that this was something, then I feel. But then again, it might happen to be. Sorry.
Yeah. Risha, do you have any continuation, or I would like to ask a small question to you?
No, actually, it's fine. We can move ahead. I guess
along these lines only. I just want to know, how will you deem something as fake? Like, what is your criteria to say an accusation is
so
fake?
What happens is that sometimes people put up complaints about people. Actually, this has happened in the past. I think
Let's ask Unman to answer how he decides what is fake and what is.
I understand.
I didn't ask you.
Sure.
What is your
Okay.
criteria to decide if an accusation is fake or true? And how, when will you take the reactive position of making this all public?
Okay, so I won't be the only one who is deciding whether the case is fake. So I will first study the case and I will see if there is any solid proof as to what the person in question is talking about. Then that would be presented in the CCASH committee. And if the CCASH committee also thinks that the case is fake, then again the first warning would be issued. And if it happens for the second time, then that would be made public. So I won't be the only one who decides if the case is fake or not. It would be the entire committee.
Can you not use the word fake and give an explanation as to when will you call it fake?
I would call it not serious if we don't have any solid
Just you can
proof
just
as to.
mention it as inappropriate complaint probably,
No,
and then you
if,
can tell why. Yeah.
So a complaint is inappropriate if there is not solid proof for the accusations being made by the complainant.
Wait, that is incorrect. So suppose there is a case of rape and there is no, say the victim or whatever was how do you say, like that person didn't take a rape kit or whatever, and there is no proof because maybe that person went to a boys' hostel for this, like just went to the boys' hostel and this happened, okay, for whatever purposes, and there is no proof of this. So what you will just give the complaint as fake.
Okay.
So the
So
thing
it's
is
like the
actually, sorry, you can answer that. My bad.
It's like you are asking the question as to what would I do in such a case, right?
Yeah, basically,
no
if the GenSec is going to be, if the GenSec is going to be a part of the CCASH committee, right, or if any student representative, they should be very clear on the boundaries and on the how do you say, like what qualifies, what are the, like basically there should be distinctions of what is true, what is false, and everything, right? Like there has to be very strict guidelines because this is actually a very serious issue. And I have seen a lot of guy friends of mine who get into trouble for fake cases. I have also seen a lot of girls who are not able to put across their cases and they get deemed as false and nothing happens about them. You know, even legit cases. So the problem being, so this is a serious issue on campus today.
That is true.
So I think, yeah, maybe it's okay if you, like right now, if you don't have an answer, you can think about it, but it's genuinely a matter of concern and I really request you to think about it.
Yeah, definitely. This is something which has to be thought about. But then again, it's like the question is what will you do if there is no proof available for a rape, right?
Exactly.
Or any other similar case?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, right now I don't really have an answer because
I get it. It's fine.
It's like the question,
It's a difficult question to answer, I get it. But yeah, just think about it, please, because you did mention you'd be a part of CCASH. So
yeah.
I think Aman has a question. Sorry, Aman. Yeah.
No. I just had a few points to add. I think she raised a very fine question, something which not many people speak about. I think Unman, I would like to add a few things here so that you can remember it next time. You said about something called making it public the second time. I mean,
right.
what do you mean by making it public?
It's like maybe through the official handle of CCASH, it can be said that this particular person has twice approached with a fake, inappropriate case against allegation to some other person.
No,
so if this happens for them,
I don't think that is legally something allowed. I mean, completely, it is like if someone has done wrong, you publicly shaming a person. I don't think.
Aman, that itself is not a big problem. The problem is anybody who is accused of this thing will have a legal action against IIT Madras. And we are currently having a few legal cases by professors or students who have taken it to the High Court.
Fine.
Yes,
I mean,
as long as the matter is under jurisdiction, you are not supposed to say anything about that matter.
Exactly. I mean, even if you are proven false, you cannot shame someone in public. So there's no point of making it public. I mean, just make sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure the CCASH committee will make sure that this kind of thing is not in place. But just make it clear for the next time, because it becomes a more or less a human rights issue. Then like you can't publicly shame a person.
Also, yeah, and Unman, the problem I'll tell you with what happens with making it public, no, like at least I can tell you, I have friends or whatever, right? Personally as well. There you will at least as a girl in Insti, some post girls in Insti end up having at least 2 to 3, even 4 cases regarding maybe not as serious offenses as rape, but I think all offenses are almost as serious, right? Every sexual harassment case is serious, whether small. And a lot of girls actually face
I'm really sorry. Again, your voice is getting cut off in
Oh my
between.
god, I'm so sorry. So, right, is it audible now?
Yeah, it is.
Okay, no, the point being, what Aman is trying to say is that a lot of times a girl will apply for multiple cases also. Like legal issues is one thing. Second, just a basic thing, okay? Sometimes multiple cases will not be able to, you can't prove it. And so you can't shame every girl that comes to you, right? The girl will be so scared to come to you if you do this. Like if I really think I have no proof, then I will like zip my mouth altogether. You understand now?
Yeah,
So
I do.
that will really, so that's why we're saying just think about it. That's fine. Okay, I have another question. If unless somebody else has, I can ask that.
I just add on two
Yeah,
things
sure.
more. Second thing was that there's a need of student representative in CKS as a permanent member whenever there's some student case involved, which is not the mandatory now, which you mentioned, right? And I'm just telling you what is the precarious situation this is needed. I mean, if there's a case of student versus faculty, and when you know that the student representative is not a mandatory part of this kind of case, then there's high chance that this might go in some other way. I mean, I'm not referring to any kind of practical case, but I'm pretty sure this may go into a very biased manner. So that's why a student representative needs to be there. If not student representative, pakka at least a woman representative needs to be there, considering most of the cases are filed against women or by the women. Third thing, I will just tell you, there was a concern of fake thing. I just tell you that there are many cases, even in, I mean, I'm not talking about CKS, I'm talking about disciplinary committee. In the disciplinary committee, when cases come about that someone has cheated, I mean, then we go about finding how actually can be proven that he actually cheated or not. So most of the time, we actually give, I mean, the committee give the very least, what do you say, punishment, because they can establish only that least part. They cannot establish whether the second level, third level was actually done or not. And that's why even in CKS cases, I believe that there will be cases where you can't even prove whether the person has done wrong or whether the person who's against complaint is done wrong. So in that cases, it's something which CKS has to decide what to do. But you can think about it. But yeah, public shaming and all those things, please be away from them.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I get the point. I mean, it's like if we have some punishment mechanism in place, that would definitely defer people who are trying to approach Ccash for a case. So I mean, it's a loop. I feel so. Maybe if we can
Exactly.
find some way
And
out of.
and I'm not sure, but I think CKH will also have a set of rules where it clearly lays down what actually was the wrong thing being committed, who committed it, and what to give the punishment. I believe that there are already set of rules for the institute disciplinary committee and hostel disciplinary committee. I think CKH should also have similar lines. So I think that the area can be tackled more by them by their following the guidelines, I think.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, fine. I mean, others can go on.
So I have
So
one
I
more
would,
question. Sorry.
Grisha, just a second. Yeah. So I would like to add a point to what Aman said. So what we are talking here is just abstract because CKS is not something which IIT Madras has laid the guidelines of. It's something which is a centralized one which Supreme Court laid the guidelines in Vishaka case. And then in 2013 also there were properly a constitution for the committee was given by Supreme Court only. So we cannot actually decide these things amongst ourselves because this is something which is very centralized. So you need to look at the procedural aspect of that. The Supreme Court decides. Yeah.
Exactly. That angle is also there. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I completely agree to the fact that it's a centralized thing. The reason I was actually bringing it up more was the fact that in NST it's still a problem and it's not very effective system. So you need to act as a bridge between NST stuff and the centralized body to ensure that the centralized body is working in favor of NST. That's the only thing. Anyway, so I have another question. All right, this is regarding a team under you, like Sustainability Network, right? So my question regarding this team is because I didn't see a lot of it on your manifesto. So the agenda of the team is really good, right? They want to bring about certain sustainability changes. At least that is how I understand it on campus as well. So the thing is, everyone is moving through towards a more sustainable, outcome. I saw this in some HAS manifestos as well. I even saw a lot of other people putting up sustainability-based points. So I think it is there in the COCAS manifesto, if I'm not wrong. So what I really wanted to know from you, because it comes under you, right? How do you plan on making Insti more sustainable? And what is the what is the team's defined role that they're going to work on? Because I mean, I haven't seen that. It's not very effective today. Right? At least that's what my understanding is.
Right. One thing is the SNET team has not really been active in the previous year because their initiatives cannot be very impactful in online mode. Right. So this team has more or less been inactive.
Yeah, agreed. Sorry.
And I'm thinking of trying to re-energize it to make sure it is but offline. I mean, it works in the offline mode. So when I talked with the cores of these teams, so they had some initiative in their mind which they could not implement because of an online mode. Now these initiatives included doing an energy audit for different hostels, then to have some hackathons or some competitions wherein students can come in and solve the issues which are happening in the institute regarding sustainability. And one feature which I added in the manifesto, the airport and train facilitator, this is about sustainability. So this in some way will also help in reducing the fuel consumption, etc. However, that is outside the institute. But then this point came up after discussing with the SNET team, although I did not mention them specifically in my manifesto or my feasibility. Right. I think my job as the SJ, if I get elected, is to make sure this team is well equipped for the offline mode, and the initiative which they had planned to, which could not happen because of online mode, that initiative could be better conducted. Right. So that is what I think I would be doing in this particular aspect.
All right. Okay.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, that does. Again, I have another question. It may come off as a bit controversial, but please take it in the best manner, I suppose. The question is actually like today. Okay, there are certain spheres that are given at least on face value, right? A little more importance than maybe all spheres, and sometimes it's very difficult to get people for your teams, right? To apply for your teams and stuff like that. I'm not sure again if this question was already asked. My bad if it is. How do you plan on? It wasn't.
Okay. It wasn't.
Yeah. So again, like for teams like SNET and teams like, where there is like, you don't know if there's going to be a role or not, right? In the COVID scenario. And people don't know much about such teams, right? And don't worry, I face the same problem in sports. So how will you bring about people to apply for such positions? Because if it happens on ground, then you will need people. And if you don't hire now, then majority of the supposed people who have, really care about it would have taken up other PO spots. And it becomes too late then for people to want to work for one semester or a couple of months and all that. So in your tenure, how will you effectively ensure that all your teams are going to work to the maximum efficiency and you get people for all of them?
Yeah, so as we were discussing a few minutes back with the research affairs secretary, so that is what I was referring to as an unbiased opinion of all the different spheres. So if we have an orientation at the start of the semester itself, and where we can cover all the teams, then people would really know as to what really happens in one particular team, and they won't go by their own personal bias as to which team's orientation happened first or which teams was the greatest or so on and so forth. So that is one thing, but that would happen in offline mode. Currently sitting over here when we have to plan for the coming semester, I think if we can, we may not have enough strength at the moment. But then if we have the initiatives in some way, if we can start them in the summer itself, then maybe you can get people to know as to what really goes on behind these teams, and then they can be more motivated to join them. And the next point the previous point would be to have an introduction program where we can have all these teams orientations.
Yeah, exactly. I was just actually one thing that I personally feel, maybe I'm again incorrect, but I feel that maybe what is required right now is more upfront publicity. Like sustainability is something that a lot of people, I'll tell you, a lot of people just are underrated. Like they just take it as a thing that is okay. Like why do we want to? Like they don't take it that seriously. So there is a lot that can be done with every team online, and I think you will realize that as you stretch your boundaries. Like if you do get elected. So I would just request you to really think about even in the online scenario what. Right? And how can you spread the message of all your teams even in the online scenario, because it is going to be that way for a while.
Right. Yeah. I understand. Yeah. Definitely.
Yeah, just a point to be made, not a question. Unman, if you're doing this if you're doing this absorption program, right, you will need the support for all the secretaries. You can't do it on your own because you may not have the bandwidth or the knowledge of every sphere, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So you might have put it in your manifesto of being done it, but it will be a joint collaborative effort between the entire EC.
Yeah,
Right?
definitely. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So how would you convince all the secretaries to, be onboarded with this?
Yeah, to begin with, I have already consulted the aspiring colleagues and the aspiring co-curricular affairs because they are the ones who have the biggest orientations, and they are on board for us.
I want to point it out there. Well, you are discounting the entire sphere of sports, research affairs, secretary work, your own area.
No, not at all. It's like the sports and the research affair. I wasn't really sure as to because they don't have one single orientation where they have, because even for the research people, as you said,
That first before putting it for the entire EC together, right? You can't just talk to the COCAS and the CULSEX and say that you can have the entire team absorption program done for the freshers.
Yeah. So this was something where I wanted to begin with. Because I wasn't really aware of what I heard was the orientations are in different phases. There is not one single orientation wherein we get to know about all the different bodies.
Precisely. So for clarifying that thing, you should have reached out to somebody for that rather than assuming a lot of things and written it down. Right?
Yeah, definitely. I'll do that.
Yeah.
I mean, I should have done that. Okay, I'll do that.
Right. Sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. So I have, again, sorry, Unman, I have one more question. So my question is regarding Sathi. Again, I'm not sure if it has been asked, so please do let me know. So regarding Sathi, I have one question. Okay. So personally, also, I think a lot of people face this. Like Sathi is very effective in your first year, right? For you as a person, and at least in terms of, in certain senses, like they help you work around workflow, they help you work around a couple of things. But the kind of network Sathi has, like reach to every single fresher in some way, right? Don't you believe that it can be utilized for a lot more things than it is probably being utilized for right now? So how would you increase the utility of Sathi, and what all would you include as part of them? And also, sometimes certain Sathi mentors do not take it up primarily to put it as a social point on their resume. So how will you ensure that doesn't happen, and that every person, every fresher gets a good Sathi mentor?
Okay, so regarding the first question, do you have any particular thing where you feel Sathi should be utilized? Do you have anything on your
So
mind?
I'll tell you, okay? Yeah. So, like for example, personally in sports, okay, like sports, it's really difficult for me to sometimes guys. It's easy to reach out to because they know, they play together in their quaddies and stuff like that, and they are connected to each other. But in the first year, it's very difficult to convey to a girl who has never played sports before that it's okay, you can come and learn, because in Insti, a lot of sports, like for example, tennis. Now in this year, I have 2 people graduating, okay, and I'll be the only person left on the team except for 2 other probables. Now we would really like to train new people, because after I graduate, then there is nobody else, right? And these people will also graduate with me. So this kind of information passage from their first year should happen, wherein sport seems more approachable to them. See, I can't go and talk to every single fresher. You guys have reached to every single fresher. It's not just for my thing. I'm sure the cultural secretaries agree that cultural as a sphere to penetrate to everyone. They don't know what the formal way is. At least in my case, there's say an inter-IIT. These people can join clubs and all, right, for cultural. So all this information can really be passed on through Sathi very well, and they should in fact encourage freshers to join different teams to ensure that they're having a good Insti life.
So one thing, I mean, again, through the absorption program, the teams would be able to reach all the freshers. Then going on, the Sathi mentor network can play a role in motivating the people, right? To make sure they apply for various teams in the institute. But then I feel on the long run, Sathi mentor network, I mean, talking about getting good mentors, I feel if we have some report system about the mentors. So currently there is some one such system in place, wherein after a particular period, we get in the reports of all the different mentors by their mentees. So they gave a report as to how their mentor was. Did he or she perform well? Did they guide you properly? So if we have some check system in place, then maybe we would be able to get good mentors, and that is happening right now too. So if we can maybe increase the frequency of it or make it more accountable, by having some penalties for the mentors who are not doing their job properly, then that would be a way to get good mentors for the team. And regarding utility, I mean, this can always be done. I mean, if the concerned people approach Sathi and tell ki, I mean, we need people to know more about this, then that can be done through the mentor network. Yeah.
All right. Okay.
That answers
Yeah,
yours.
yeah, that's all right. I just, my only thing is, I believe that even further, like from whatever you said, right? Even further, Sathi's utility could be really big, and you guys are already doing a good job. But further on, I think there is a lot more that can be done. Maybe just talk to different secretaries about Sathi specifically. I'm sure every secretary will have something to add here.
Yeah, definitely. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, we have an audience question. Do we have Aryan here? Aryan, HS 19.
I just saw Aryan leaving the meeting a while ago.
Okay, maybe I'll ask his question. So he really likes your academic enhancement program. Will HS also be included in that? And how will you facilitate that?
Okay. So it's not about a department, it's about some selective courses. So some selective courses from HS can be included. If the people are recurrently finding the courses difficult to catch up with. And then the professors can be approached, as I told you, by the executive committee. And then they can be brought on board. It's not about selecting department, it's about selecting the courses. Maybe Aryan can watch this recording later on.
Sure. Okay. Can you elaborate on your gender sensitization workshops and your motivation behind this point?
Right. So this is something which has been thought of by the Women's Forum, and they were planning to have it in some. I mean, they were thinking of having some sort of a workshop. So I thought if we can have this workshop at the start of the semester itself, so that a clear and firm message can be given right at the start. So it's not like it's lost in the semester; it's lost somewhere in the semester. And when the students are free and receptive, we can have this workshop, and it would help in giving a long-term message regarding this topic, and try to address the issue right from the start.
What topic exactly?
Regarding gender sensitization, being aware as to what are your, where do you draw the line? What are your boundaries regarding that in interacting with different genders?
Okay.
Yeah.
And are you going to, sorry, I'll ask a follow-up to this. Are you going to mandate this for everyone on campus? Like, I mean, at least the entire fresher batch?
This will be mandated for the freshies, definitely.
Okay. The issue with that is whenever you mandate something, the things don't reach, in a proper fashion, right? So, yeah, again, yeah, but if you don't mandate, you don't reach. So, yeah, it's a. Yeah, have you thought about this? So.
Yeah, it's like this program would be happening in the absorption program, right? So they would have a lot of different events happening, which would be interactive. So through the process, they would be really involved in this program. They would be willing to attend each and everything that is happening. And then this workshop, and as the topic is really important, I mean, so they would, I mean, even if it's mandated, as this is only the only one thing which is mandated in the entire absorption program. I feel people would be willing to attend this.
Which part? I'll just confirm here. Which part is mandated? I didn't hear properly.
The gender sensitization workshop.
Okay, fine.
My question is, if you, like a lot of people, okay, who will be conducting this workshop firstly?
This is through an external organization. The Women's Forum have approached them previously.
Okay, and I'll tell you what happens with talks and workshops conducted by different people. Primarily, people ignore them.
To add on to this,
yeah, sorry.
Black tulip on the campus. Right?
Sorry.
Have black tulip or something on the campus as well. Right?
Yeah, we do.
Okay, so why not with them and why with like an external party?
Yeah, Women's Forum is black tulip. I think that's what he was saying. No, so Unman, my question is this, okay? I'll tell you what happens. I think we all secretaries were also discussing having something similar for a lot of people. Firstly, majority people will not, even if we attend it, right? It's a talk, it's a workshop. We don't get it. Okay. Second, even though the Women's Forum tries to do it in collab with them, there is that time to how do you say, they're trying to get Insti's message across, right? What problems they'll face in Insti. Freshers are too young. I mean, they basically may not they may not realize it, the impact of it, because they've not yet seen stuff, right? So this is why at least I personally believe that maybe peer to peer affects things more than this information coming from such like from workshops and all of that. Like people genuinely don't pay attention. It's like a class. So how will you ensure that people are actually, the motive is like it goes through? I feel a more hands-on thing is better than a talk. Like a more hands-on thing when you actually maybe play games, like you said, right? Initiator Week has a lot of things. So this workshop can be more hands-on than it actually being about just a talk.
Right. Okay. I mean, I'll get more clarity of this after understanding what the workshop is all about, after consulting with the external body.
Yeah.
But then it's like if all the other events are interactive, then having one thing which may not be that interactive would still help in sending the message. And it would always have some facility to start some peer interaction between the students after such a workshop. So after this workshop, they would really discuss among themselves as to what they learned or what does it really mean in their own life. So this would help in having peer-to-peer conversations too. But then for that to start it, we need to have some workshop. So.
I think. Okay, I just had one point. I think what she mentioned was quite, practical in the sense that, I'm not sure how it will go. But yeah, if there can be some properly examples laid out through people, that okay, saying this thing to a girl would be like not a proper thing, and if this kind of things happen, this is not proper. Maybe a bit of practicalness can be involved, not full session if possible, but I think that would certainly help. I think.
Yeah, it's like this organization has two different events. They have one talk, they have a workshop. So the talk, we discuss on both these possibilities. And talk is just some boring session. So talk we rolled out, and then we thought of having a workshop also, so that it would be more interactive and help in sending them. Again, this question would again arise whether how much interactive the workshop would be, but about that I do not have any idea as of now.
Fine.
But that can be catered as well.
Let me just ask a clarification. So this was your idea, or they approached you, so you put it in your manifesto?
No, they didn't approach me. When I was discussing with her, this point came up, and they were thinking of having this workshop at some point in this year. But I thought it's better to have this in the assumption program itself.
Okay. Why not just
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Krishna.
No, I think just a clarification, because I'm not sure. I think Women's Forum would have told you, because the executive wing discussed it with them and they were planning to do this. So I think that is how the idea sort of percolated to you. But again, that's it. As long as you make it formal and conducted every year, I think that's fine. But just get it done. That's all. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a suggestion here. So here's where you can actually leverage on the Sathi's, the mentorship network, right? Because it gets conveyed, really well when done peer to peer. So instead, what you can do is, train these the mentors, and then in a way, they can effectively communicate to the 5 or 6 mentees in the group. Yes, this is something you can do, and also so through this also you can spread awareness about the Ccash, the current existing the networks that can help you out in these issues, right? So yeah, you can really penetrate to each and every freshers using the network.
Yeah, so maybe you can have some workshop of this sort for the mentors itself.
Yes,
and later on they can percolate. Okay, cool.
Also, do you want to just stick to gender, or do you want to go to other categories such as region, political convictions, like all of those that are listed in the constitution?
Right. So this external body focuses on gender. So this workshop, if it happens, it would be through on the gender issue itself. But then later on, as we talked about, we can utilize the Sathi mentor network. So in that, we can include other topics too, the ones which you talked about. But this workshop, as of now, is only for gender issues.
Okay.
Also, sorry, Ramcharan, do I have time to ask one last question, or?
Go ahead.
All right. Okay. So last question. I'm again sorry for asking so many back to back. But this question is regarding mental health. Okay, so I just saw it on your manifesto that you had organized some kind of talk by seniors who have faced similar issues and something of that kind, right? So my question is, like, mental health is actually a very, very sensitive issue, right? Which a lot of us have been trying to tackle for a very long time, right? I think every secretary, in fact, every GenSec for sure tries to do something about it. Everyone else wants to involve, themselves to be able to do something about it. I've seen it on quite a few sports manifestos as well, right? So my question is, what is your plan on a more structured way of actually tackling the solution? See, talks and all happen a lot, okay, but eventually a lot of people face very small problems, and that causes larger sort of like depression, or not only depression, it's just loneliness, right? It's a very common thing on campus, in fact. So how do you tackle such issues very effectively? And honestly, you can do a lot by collaborating with different spheres. So if you have an answer for that, again, I don't know if it's been asked.
No, it hasn't been asked. So one thing which I am thinking about is having video testimonial series. So this is not for the seniors only. Any person, any junior, anyone who had gone through this issue and approached the wellness center, then they can be reached out, and if they give their consent to shoot this sort of a video, then that can be put on the official handles. And then when people understand that there are other people who are facing similar issues as them, and these issues can be resolved after going to some particular center, then I feel that would help in bringing out more people. And regarding collaborating with different bodies, okay, I'm seeing this as another thing where the Sathi Mentor Network can come in place, and just try to make sure people are not left out in different ways. So somewhere we can, if you can make sure that the mentor-mentee connection goes on in the semester and the semester next, and if we can look into these issues too, we can do something. So maybe after quiz 2 we have one mentor-mentee meetup. Maybe before the end sems or after the end sem we have a mentor-mentee meetup, and so on and so forth. Then we can help make sure that these issues also trickle down into the mentees. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, all right.
So yeah, I have one question with regards to the mentorship set itself. Usually for the mentors, we get lots of application. Like most of the applications are from the second year sophomores, right? And the sophomores for the coming batch will be the current freshers, and they've not even been on campus. And yeah, so how are you going to tackle this? Like, yeah, they don't have adequate experience to be a mentor, but then if you restrict them, you may not get the enough number.
Yeah. So experience in what domain are you talking about?
No, in general about the different things that happen on campus.
It's like the absorption program which I'm talking about. I'm also thinking of having it on a smaller scale for the 2020 batch. And it's not like they don't have any experience at all. They do have some experience in this online semester, and they may be able to tackle the online issues more efficiently than those who have already been on the campus. If the freshie batch is going through an online semester too, online learning too, they may be better equipped to tackle their issues. And through this orientation, we can reinforce their already previous understanding of the institute through the absorption program on a smaller scale for the 2020 batch.
But they're definitely not well equipped, for an offline mentorship. This is what I feel.
No. What I'm saying is because they have gone through an issue of having their first semester in an online mode, and the current 2021 batch is also studying on a completely online mode for the JEE and so on. Maybe they would be better equipped to resolve these issues regarding the online mode. And coupled with that, if they do have an understanding of the different institute spheres beforehand, and that would be reinforced with the absorption program for them. And with these two things combining, they can really tackle the issues of the 2020 batch.
Okay, that was optimistic, but yeah, there's an issue here. And yeah, with regards to the absorption program, so what if the next semester is going to be online? So will you be having 8-10 day long online program?
We would have to reduce the intensity of the program. The introduction of the team, which will happen for maybe 3 hours, we will have to cover it up in 1 hour, and also try to make sure it happens with the highest interaction possible. So, but then that has to be given thought with sitting with different teams and figuring out how that can be done. It may not happen for an entire 10-day long period, but on a smaller scale, if it's completely online.
Don't you think it will be an information overload when, like, suddenly it'll just be information, right? If it's done online, I mean, it will just be presentations and talks. And
Yeah.
don't you think it's an information overload over the 8, 10, I mean, 5, 6 days if you reduce it? Or I think it's better, like, it would be better if it's connected in a discrete fashion.
Discrete as in different periods along the semester, is it?
Yes, space it out evenly.
Or I mean, one more thing which I thought of, but I did not really implement, because it's like we can have a smaller scale version of it, just like for the 2020 batch, and we'll wait for the time when they come back on the campus, and then we'll have a proper offline orientation again. So some part will cover it up in the online mode, and some part will keep for the offline when we get back. So try not to give all the information at the online mode itself, and keep some stuff for the offline mode.
Okay, I mean, yeah. So some part, as in, I didn't get, like, what is some part? Like the orientation. I mean, will you just have, like, say, sports and co-curriculars?
Yeah, I mean, we'll give them enough.
others?
We'll give them enough knowledge to make sure they know what all is happening on the campus. But then, like, how to get into the team, what all you have to do to be a part of the team, they can keep that for later when they come on, when they are on the offline semester. I mean, this is just one example. This will have to be figured out after sitting with every team and understanding their requirements as to what they really want to convey at the start of the semester.
Yeah, I think you really need to talk to, I mean, each and every member of the executive council, and I mean, the different spheres on the campus to, like, structure this properly. Otherwise, it's going to be a big mishap. Like,
yeah, true. So as this for this, all the executive council will have to come together. Then they can take inputs from their respective teams, and then we can sit together and decide the form.
Okay, so I think if everybody is done, I also know no audience member also has a question, so we'll move on to the last questions that SEC has. So we are asking the same variant of question to all candidates about accountability and being real. So, I mean, Aman will particularly remember the scenario last year where we asked him what % of his manifesto he'll finish. And we didn't know about COVID then, and he said 100%, but we don't know how much of that happened. So how will you make sure that you are being honest about your failures as well? You just, like, when I asked you that, and also when I asked you what is your priority, you said everything is a priority, and I assume I'll see what percentage of thing you'll complete. So say how will be real and honest about where you have failed during your tenure, and how will you hold yourself accountable.
Right. So we do have to submit a report in every semester to the SLC, right, regarding what all work we have done. So I'll make sure that the report is being submitted on time, and I'll be honest about submitting that report. And yeah, I will. And going beyond that, if I'm not able to submit my report in time, I feel there should be some warning mechanism in place. So I feel there are two reports in the entire year, right? As far as I remember.
They have SLC will call for reports from you. You have to submit a report every 2 months.
Every 2 months, okay. So it's like we'll need to have some warning system in place. I mean, this is similar to the CCASting which you're talking about.
No, there is a warning system in place. SEC, like, if SLC can't do, they'll tell SECC and will mail you. So what punishment, like, in addition to a warning, what would you ask? Would you be okay with SECC giving you?
Would I be okay with?
Yeah, what punishment would you be okay with being given?
Okay, so as this is happening for after every 2 months, I feel the first step should be giving warning. The next step should be making it public that this particular secretary has not been able to complete his or her assure. He has not been able to submit a proper report. And then on the third warning, I feel the secretary should be removed from the post if he gets 3 consecutive warnings.
Okay. I think that's pretty much it. Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions?
Okay, I'll just add context to that. I think last year, I mean, what the current executive council, I'm not sure just about mine. I'm not sure about others, but I think
what I was saying was, like, we don't have the benefit of looking at the future, and in that context, I was trying, how will you be accountable to, like, because you don't know the future, right? That's what I was mentioning. I'm not talking about the past executive council.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just adding, see, one thing which, I mean, I personally, it's not being some kind of crime or something. I can easily accept that, yeah, most of my manifesto is not completed. And if I look at my manifesto, I'm pretty sure more than half of the points are something which, I mean, there's no way and there's no need as of today. So if I talk about building a bus stop at CLT, it was a need on 14 March 2020. But if we talk about today when there are possibility of having when there's second wave already going on, when we had a hotspot on campus, when the my mess prices were hiking somewhere in May, I think it just completely changed the demand and the need of the present from what we had expected. So I think this batch of executive council has already seen what the worst has. I mean, what the worst world had seen. I just hope it won't go much worse than what we had seen in month of June, July, or August 2020. But yeah, I mean, again, if something goes too much wrong, I think these executive council candidates already have some backup plans of keeping the things online. But yeah, I mean, if the online part is also not done, um, it's up to the GSB to decide. I mean, what they want to do or not.
Oh, okay, great. So I'd like to thank everybody for attending this session. I'd also like to thank Unman for answering all their questions and the Executive Council for attending this session. The election is on April 7th. The voting instructions will be sent out to you today. We have already posted a voting tutorial a week ago where we've given an in-depth explanation of the entire procedure. I request everybody to vote and also tell your friends to vote. All the soapbox videos and a lot of content is on our YouTube channel. SCCC's YouTube channel. You can also follow us on Instagram for a lot of updates. And yeah, please do vote. There's also the Kalsek Soapbox happening with both Kalsek candidates, Ajmal and Sai Prakash. Please do join that as well. It probably will start in a few minutes. And yeah, thanks for coming. You can
just one thing I would like to add before we go. I'm also really grateful to the SEC for really adapting to the online mode and giving us ample opportunity to put our points. So yeah, and thanks a lot everyone for attending the Soapbox.
Thanks, Salman, for those kind words. Everybody can leave.
All right.
Wait, how should I end the recording if Meher has left? Okay.
You can